The Western Cape's released its quarterly crime statistics, and among the numbers are children killed. It recorded 39 child murders since January alone. Reagen Allen is the Western Cape Minister of Police, Oversight and Community Safety and joins us now. Reagen, good evening to you and welcome to Full View. These are heartbreaking numbers, and it's made worse by the fact that children in a lot of the gang-ridden areas, places like Manenberg and Delft and Bonteheuwel, among others, don't even have safe spaces for children. So talk to us about the trends of where and how these children are meeting their end.
Iman, you are quite correct in saying that it is heart-wrenching. It is totally unacceptable, saying that we are wanting to create safer spaces. And when we see that 39 children, and that is between the ages of 1 and 18, have been murdered in our province. Iman, I'm not even happy that there is a 20 less for this particular quarter than last year. So even though it's a decrease, it is still a matter that we would want the public to engage on, knowing that we are needing a whole of government, a whole of society approach in order to tackle this. But what we have seen in terms of the trends, Iman, is that it's very clear that a large majority of our child-related murders have been linked to gang violence. The latest one, Iman, in Manenberg happened when a gangster, a criminal, was cleaning a firearm. That led to the gun going off and hitting a young 9-year-old. We have secured an arrest in that particular matter, and bail has been opposed. And I'm quite delighted to see that that particular case is being tracked further. All these cases, Iman, with child-related murders, we have already placed our court watching brief on those particular cases where arrests have been made, because we are wanting to see that there is no inefficiencies in the system, from the detectives all the way leading to the prosecutors. We would want justice for those little ones. But the trends are very concerning, but it's something that we look at. We look at the evidence, we look at the data so that we can ultimately deploy our officers far better here in the Western Cape.
The child you're talking about is 9-year-old Tiano Anthony, I understand. And again, when you talk to us about the range of children, toddlers really, between the ages, starting from the age of 1 upwards, it's just really heartbreaking. Reagen, trauma counsellors who work in the area say that if the gangs are allowed to operate with impunity, if it's normalized for children to witness shootings or even to go towards the action to try and see what's happening, they're exposed to drug dealing, this reality will continue to be nightmarish. What can you tell our viewers about what the province is doing to stop this, to confront this head on?
Iman, I was earlier on in the area of Delft. And in Delft, we initially had 89 of our LEAP officers working with the South African Police Service, ensuring that there's extra visibility in those areas. We have now bumped up that particular number to 141 LEAP officers in Delft alone. Currently, we have over 1,300 LEAP officers working with the South African Police Service. We also work closely with our neighborhood watchers, Iman. We are the only province that have accredited neighborhood watchers. We have over 17,000 volunteers that are working in our communities, creating awareness along with the CPFs, but also the work that we do with social development. The daunting task, Iman, of this particular role is working also with all our departments within the government. We are working closely with social development, knowing that there is a referral pathway that must ultimately lead to counseling, to social services, to parenting programs in many of our communities, and especially in our hotspot areas. And I'm very determined, because I remember playing in the road, and then you thinking that a bullet will go off. Times have changed for the worst, but we have seen now, when we look at that particular quarter, we have seen the biggest decrease in murders overall in the entire country. But I would be the first one to say we have a long way to go.
Yeah. I mean, as you said at the beginning of the interview, in the corresponding period, you had 19 people killed, and in this term, you've got 39 children killed. What's interesting, though, is these hotspot areas. When you talk about neighborhood watchers, the CPFs, when you talk about social development and visible policing, are these the areas you're talking about? You're talking about Bonteheuwel and Delft and places like that?
Iman, thank you so much for asking that question as clearly as you have done. Because Where LEAP officers are deployed is where the data shows us they must be. They are in our priority areas. They are in Khayelitsha, in Harare, in Mitchells Plain, in Tafelsig, in Bishop Laver's Bonteheuwel. They are only in our priority areas because we have pushed our mandate. Even though policing is not sitting at a provincial level, we have a payment transfer agreement with the City of Cape Town, and we jointly deploy our LEAP officers in that regard. We are also working so much closer with the South African Police Service here in the Western Cape, knowing that our oversight demand should lead to better service delivery. Otherwise, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why are we having a department that has oversight? But that oversight should ultimately lead to better service delivery in our communities. But our LEAP officers are strategically deployed. They are also deployed at specific times where the evidence has showed us gang violence and crime violence have increased. Iman, we are also very proactive, considering a phenomenon in our communities, and you have alluded to it, in that there's a shooting, there's a young child that could potentially run to that shooting, but there's a secondary matter that is also very concerning, is that it often leads to further retaliations. In our analysis of it, if one gang member is murdered, it could contribute to, in the next week alone, an additional 4 gang members being murdered because of the retaliation and the gang violence. And then we are trying to be obviously more proactive in that regard, make the arrest, be visible, and ensure that the communities are stable.
I guess, people from the outside aren't living in these areas where there are such prominent levels of violence and visible violence at that, wanting to know, are you going to win the war? The president announced this anti-gang unit, which was a combination of specialized units, and the whole aim was to weaken the stranglehold that gang activity has on the lives of people. So, what's the benefit of a program like that in conjunction with what you're already doing? Because depending on how you count, about half a dozen big gang formations are in the province, and it seems as if they are winning the war.
Iman, I fully hear where you're coming from. I have some concerns also with regards to the anti-gang unit. I would want to state on the record, when that announcement was made by the president, there was budget allocated to the anti-gang unit. Here in the province, we have not seen the full allocation of the AGU in our areas. That means we are currently, in terms of the established amount that we should have, we are consistently almost 40 to 50 of AGU members in that deployment of 174 only short. So we have pushed in order to see the full complement of the AGU, which also works in our gang-ridden areas. And just last week, Iman, for the very first time, there was a high-level court sentencing conviction for one particular known gangster from the area where I grew up in Mitchells Plain, and that particular court case went on for 5 years. It was done in terms of the Prevention of Organized Criminal Activities Act. Yeah. And after 5 years, that particular person will be sentenced tomorrow. But we are wanting to see more of the elements and the clauses in terms of the poker be instituted against these gang members so that they can ultimately get a sentence, be convicted, and stay behind bars where they ultimately belong, because they have caused such a lot of turmoil and devastation in our communities. But the AGU is helping. SABC, together with our law enforcement, together with all our units in the City of Cape Town and in our Western Cape, we firmly believe in the partnership, but Iman, we are 20 years behind in terms of the resources that we need from SABC.
And perhaps as a program, these are questions we can ask about why, the full complement. In other words, the design of a plan hasn't been fully realized, especially for a situation as troublesome and as deadly and violent as this one is. Reagen Allen, we appreciate your time, the Western Cape Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety.